Hi guys, my name is Addison. I'm the service manager over at Bikes Not Bombs. Bikes Not Bombs uses the bicycle as a vehicle for social change. So today we're going to be talking about wheel truing. It seems like a pretty confusing thing to a lot of people, but I think I've got some techniques that are going to help simplify it for you. I know not everybody has expensive equipment at home like a truing stand, so I'm going to try and show you how to work on it a little bit here after walking you through the process over here. Anyways, let's get started. A lot of people don't even know how to take the wheel off the bike, so an easy way to show you how to do that is just release the brake over here. All brakes generally have a releasing point or a quick release lever on them. Road bikes will have an easy way to slip the bike tire out by turning the brake. These guys right here are called cantilever brakes. We squeeze the brake together and slide the cable right out through this little slot right here. That allows us to slip the tire through freely. Another thing I want to make sure of is that I've got all the pressure necessary in my tire before I true the wheel, because if we pump the tire up after we true the wheel, we're going to hear some pings and pops, and that generally means that things are setting in and they've changed a little bit. So this nips that right in the bud. All right, we want to be about 75-80 psi for your average hybrid. Quick release lever comes off when I'm in the smallest gear, and the wheel slides right out. Now, I'll show you what kind of condition we're in here. Before we take the wheel out, it's pretty easy to feel this kind of issue when you're riding. This guy has quite the wobble to it. And it's easy to see it when you look between the brakes. You're rubbing the brake on one side, on actually both sides. First thing I would do here is check to make sure we don't have any broken spokes. Because even if you try to straighten the wheel out, if you don't have all the spokes in there, nothing's going to go as planned. This guy feels pretty good. So let's see what we can do. Release the brake. Make sure we're shifted all the way down to the smallest ring. That way it's a good reference point for us to be able to slide it back on there and we don't end up mangling the derailleur in the process. And release the quick release lever. All right, we're going to go over to the handy dandy truing stand. I've already adjusted this to show you the wheel. Now, you know what? I think the best way to do this is to take the tire right off of here so I can show you guys what exactly I'm doing here. Normally you would want to true the wheel, obviously, with the tire on, and I don't think you're going to have the option to take the tire off more often than not. So I'm going to take the tire off, and I need to take the rim tape off because I want to show you guys how this is working. Every single spoke on your bike has what we call a nipple that goes through the rim. I think of these like little tiny screw heads that if I turn left or right, lefty loosey, righty tighty, I'm going to tighten or loosen. However, things get a little disorienting because you don't tighten them right from the top. You have to take a spoke wrench and tighten them on the side. So without having this as a reference point or a visual aid, it's hard to know exactly what you're doing. But now here I can see that I'm loosening or tightening. So whenever I'm doing this, I like to think of a screw head when the tire's on, visualizing a screw head right through the top. And if I took a screwdriver and I turned it to tighten it or loosen it, I would move my inner hand the same exact way. That can sometimes help you because this can be very disorienting, but also very, very simple and fun. But it can drive you crazy if you don't know what you're doing. So we've got this thing on the truing stand with a pretty serious wobble. So what we need to do, since this is going side to side, is a horizontal true. So I want to start with my biggest points, with my biggest points of contact here, my problem areas. And I look at the spoke that ends up right at that point. Now, spokes come down from both sides of the wheel. You've got the left and the right, or your drive side and your non-drive side. So those spokes come down to here, and they meet right at the rim. Now, when you tighten a spoke, it brings the spoke over to the side that it's on. When you loosen a spoke, it brings the spoke away from the side that it's on. So right at the point that I found the biggest issue, it's coming down from the drive side. And I want to get it away from the drive side and more to the center. Since I want to move it away from there, I'm going to loosen it a little bit. So I put my truing wrench on, and I think about that screwdriver, turning it lefty-loosey. And when I turn it, a little bit at a time, this one's pretty stubborn, we're going to see it start to move away. And then I can bring my truing stand in a little bit. And then we find the next problem. So right here, we've got a spoke coming down from the non-drive side. And I want to get it back over to that side because it's over to the non-drive side a little too much. My goal is to get it perfectly centered between these two areas right here because I've calibrated my stand and I know that that's going to put it in the center of the rear triangle of the bicycle. So because this spoke is coming down from the non-drive side, I'm going to tighten it to bring it towards it because it's just a little too far this way. So I slide my truing wrench on and give it a couple twists. Normally you only want to do about a half a turn at a time, and you want to look at your progress. Now we've still got some issues, and we're going to keep going. We're going to find our problems. It's coming down from this side, the non-drive side, and I want it to go back over to the non-drive side because I've still got a big gap here. I want to even that out. So I tighten it to bring it back over. We'll get a bigger truing wrench. So as you can see, I've got 3 different truing wrenches right here. I've actually got 4. And then I've got this guy. I carry this one in my backpack pretty much at all times because it's got every size I need. So in case you need, if you ever need one, this is the Park tool. I don't know what model it is. But anyways, you just find your size on here. And I'm going to tighten this guy up. And now I'm noticing that these spokes are pretty stubborn. So I'm not going to go crazy tightening this. Instead, I'm going to loosen the 2 on the other sides of it because I want to bring them away from the side it's on. So I'm going to loosen them. And if I do that, it's going to act almost the same way as tightening the spoke between them, which comes down from the other side. And we just kind of share the weight a little bit on all of them. These spokes haven't been moved for a long time. Usually they're not this stubborn, but it's good that you're seeing that they are. And nipples can strip out pretty easily, so you don't want to go crazy tightening or loosening them. If they don't move, it's best to just not mess with them and try to work around them. So I stopped that rubbing, and I'm going to keep moving in. So if we were on the bicycle and you had to do this, the easiest reference point to use is your brake pads. And you'll be able to see by squeezing your brake in and out how to stop that rubbing. So I found rubbing right here. I'm going to use this spoke coming down from this side. So I want to get it away from this side because it's rubbing on this brake. I'm going to loosen it. I'm going to think about that screw head coming right down here, turning that wrench lefty-loosey. I'm even going to do it on another one, just to share that load a little bit. And then we gradually move back in. So that one's going to take a little more time, but let's get back to this guy. So we're making a bunch of noise. Sounds like fun. So coming down from this side, it's rubbing on this side. I'm going to bring it away by loosening it just a little bit. We're going to do half turns now because we're getting pretty tight together. Coming down from this side. I want to get it away from there because it's rubbing again. Just loosen it a little bit at a time. Half turns every time. Let's get one coming down from the left. Coming down from the left, I found this spoke right here to be the furthest out. So let's see what kind of tension it has on it. It's pretty tight, so I don't want to hurt the nipple, so I'm going to loosen. So I wanted to tighten the one on the right side to bring it over to the right. Instead, I'm going to loosen the ones on the left, a half a turn each, to bring it over to the right, because you can do it one of two ways. We're looking pretty good. We'll move it in a little bit more. It's easy to go crazy trying to get this absolutely perfect. What I can say is try to keep it within 2 millimeters of deviation to either side and you're in good shape. But either way, you're going to only really hopefully have to do this as much as to keep your brake from rubbing aggressively as you're riding if you need to do a quick fix on the trail or on the road. And I'm listening more than looking at this point. So this guy's coming down from the left, which is the point I found it at. It's rubbing on the right. So I'm going to tighten it to bring it back over to the left. It's a little tight, so I'm going to share that load by loosening the ones on the right just a little bit. This wheel's not in great shape, but I'm starting to be pretty happy with it. Now there is a different type of truing called vertical truing, which fortunately we don't have to do with this guy. But the way you do that, well, I'll show you in 1 second. The idea with vertical truing is that sometimes the wheel can have a hop up or down. And we can see that by tightening in my truing stand just to the top of the rim. And this one's got a little bit, as you can see. See, that's starting to hit right there. Now, if we wanted to fix that, we'd find that area, and we tighten down the spokes right around there. We want to generally tighten either 2 or 4 at the same time, and we only do half turns at a time. And you're tightening or loosening. If you have a high point where it hits, basically that means that it's dropping down because there's too little tension on this side and too much tension on this side. So we want to increase that tension on this side just a little bit if we can. And we'll go 4 spokes. Still got a little high point there. So we're going to tighten again. Only a little bit at a time because we don't want to go crazy. And I don't think I'm going to get it absolutely perfect right now due to the shape that these spokes are in. They haven't moved in a long time, so I'm not expecting miracles. But now we're only doing quarter turns at a time. And at this point, we're looking pretty good, and the spokes are, I'm going to use my best judgment on this and not try to go too hard on these spoke nipples because I'm going to start stripping them out and potentially breaking them, and the spokes could pop right off. So now, I think we're looking pretty good. Let's double check this again. Now, whenever you put that wheel back on the tire, obviously you're going to hear pings and pops. Oh, and I forgot to say before, after you do a vertical true, you're going to want to redo that horizontal true, just a little bit. And we're pretty happy with that, sticking with 2 millimeters of deviation. Don't drive yourself crazy going too much crazier than that unless we're working on something very precision and high end, but you know, this is your pretty typical hybrid. So things like that should be pretty simple to not go crazy over. So now I'm going to throw a rim strip back on this, because if the tube hits these spoke nipples, it's just going to pop. So we'll throw a rim strip on, and we'll throw it back on the bike, and see how we did. I always like to double check the wheel after I put the tire back on, because you're going to hear all sorts of pings and pangs. And that just means that the spokes are settling into place and they need a slight readjustment. We're actually sounding pretty good here. Seems like those spokes are pretty well settled in. So, an easy way, while I'm showing you this, an easy way to get your wheel back on, this is the reason I shifted it all the way down into the smallest ring, is because it's so easy to find that. So I pull my derailleur back. Not everybody's going to be hanging on a stand, I understand that, but this is just as easy to do when it's upside down, if not easier, because gravity's helping you get it into the dropouts. Pull my derailleur back, and I line the gear up with the chain, that bottom gear, because I know that's the gear that it's in. And then I slide it right up into the dropouts. Then we close up our brake. This can be a little tough. A lot of times I wish I had 3 hands. Squeeze the brake so the brake recenters itself, and give the tire a spin. And we're pretty happy with that. So that does it for now. I hope you learned a little bit from that, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Thanks a lot, guys.